Isaiah 9. Starting in verse 1, we're going to sit on verse 2 and then jump to verse 6. Isaiah 9, nevertheless, the gloom will not be upon her who is distressed. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward more heavily oppressed her by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, in Galilee, and the Gentiles, and the people walked in darkness. But the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. Lord, I pray, let us see the seriousness, the depth, and the reality of darkness, but also let us find hope of the one true light that you have set for us, God. In your awesome name, amen. All right, let's do this. Can you open that up a little bit, the blind, just so that we can have a little bit more light after all this light talk. Amen. Okay, so I was at a wedding yesterday, and I think a few of you guys were. I think some people are still there in Orlando. But I just got reminded of, actually, I don't know about you, I don't know who's married here, but maybe even if you're not married, I don't know, by going to a wedding you get reminded of what your wedding would be like, or how your wedding would be, or how your wedding was. So being there, I remember it was just such a good day. There was just so much life. There was so much light. People were just lit up. The bride was so lit up. She came, what an entrance. She came down in an elevator. So we were all sitting at this lobby, and then right when the bride, music came, and people were coming in, flower girls, all that stuff. I don't know if they were flower girls. They were just little girls that walked through. They were? All right. And then out of nowhere, from the top, this bride just comes down on an elevator, and it's clear. It's a clear elevator, so you can see, and she's smiling, and she's glowing, she was just lit up. And the thing is, when she came down, there was this, the whole ceremony that was happening, there was a waterfall in the back, so no one could really hear anything. So all you hear is murmuring and mumbling, but it's weird because everyone was crying, and everyone was and there was really, you can't hear anything. So it's why are people crying? Why are people so excited? Why are people so joyful? You can't even hear anything. All you see are two people standing together like that. And I was like, this is beautiful. This is so good. There's something about, you don't even have to hear it. You don't even have, it's just something that just lights up, a bride that is just lit up. Something is just, it's good. And it brings me to the starting point that we were really made for light. And when I was thinking about my wedding, backwards, so when I first started my relationship with Cindy, I was pursuing her for a while, and we were good friends, and it came to a point now where I'm like, I think I'm going to start this. God, I think I'm going to start this relationship where I do want to marry her. And I was like, but we're not dating yet, So we were on this mission trip, and I remember the day, and it was beautiful. I remember it was a Saturday morning. I think it was May 9th, and we were just finishing up our mission trip from Immokalee, and just waking up 6 a.m. in the morning. I love waking up before I had work, but I love waking up early in the morning and meeting with God. I love seeing the sunrise. I was explaining this to some people before. I love that being the only one, in the morning, and no one's there. And I would usually climb roofs. I like getting to a high spot, so I climbed this roof of this church that we were at in Immokalee, and I'd get up on the roof, and I loved it when the sun would peek out just for the first time, and that light would pierce through the darkness, and it would touch my skin, and it would touch my face, and you feel that warmth, and it was like, there's just something good, and you knew it was just going to be a good day. You just knew it was, and that day I was praying, I was like, God, please confirm, I'm going to make my move, God, can you, just, one more time, how can you be really sure, And just 6:30 a.m. in the morning, sun was rising, and look over the edge of the roof, and I see Cindy stepping out, with a cloak, and she didn't know I was on the roof, but apparently she was praying about me, too. And it was just beautiful. I was like, this is the sign. The light. I can see the light, And throughout that whole day, just finishing up the mission trip, and we just continued on all the way to helping with these kids in kids' church, and it was really interesting because even during lunch, whenever we would eat lunch together, and it was just that day where it wasn't like blind love. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so head over heels. It was like everything was just clear. Everything was just good. Everything was just right. The meals that we ate, Matt Chandler would always talk about this, where you don't just eat the food, you taste it. And it was that day where I felt so close to the Lord, and I was just eating, and I was like, God, this food is good. We were walking, Cindy and I were walking. We were going back to the van on the trip from the kids' church in Immokalee, and I would notice flowers. You know how you would walk by and then you could notice nothing because you're like in the middle of your issues and your problems. But that day I was like, man, this is such a good. I would walk and I'd see a white flower. And I was like, Lord, you're beautiful. And I'd walk by, I'd see one speck of cloud in the sky. I'm like, look at that, God, one cloud. One cloud. Like, Lord, you're good. You're so good. We go into the van and we start worshiping. We were singing these songs on the way back to the church, and I was like, God, these songs, look at all the notes. I hear all the notes. I hear the notes. They sing together. I'm like, I felt so lit up. I always felt so alive. And just coming home that night, people were falling asleep, and it was so interesting. Cindy was the only one up, and it was me. And we were just talking that night, just talking about nothing. I can't even remember. We were just talking about nothing. And it was great. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. And that night I called her and I told her I wanted to meet with her the following day because I liked her. And I was like, I liked you. We gotta talk about this. We gotta pray. And that night I lay down in bed and I looked up at my ceiling as if I'm looking up at stars. And I'm like, God, everything is so bright. Everything is so clear. Everything is so. I feel like, God, this is right. And I even then, though there was sin in the world, I felt like things were being restored, and I feel like my soul was being restored with God, and I feel like things were being made right. And I was like, Lord, this is a beautiful day. This is a good day. And that's really where I want to start us off now. Like, we were made for that. We were made for light. We were made to be lit up by God. We were made not to walk in such gloom and such darkness. We weren't made for that. We were made to really walk in the light of God, to be free. So, we start this relationship. And, not kidding guys, only a few months after that, I have these hopes of starting this family. I have these hopes of like, oh man, I'm going to be such a good dad. But I got this phone call a few months shortly after of my sister crying and weeping. And apparently my parents' marriage wasn't working out. And I was like, oh, start this good relationship and now this. And I'm like, God, I don't want to doubt. I don't want to fear. Is this going to happen to me? God, I can't let this happen. And I would see the change that happens in my family's marriage, in my sister's heart, and the darkness that was glooming over, that was casting a shadow over all of my family. Just as the months passed, find out that my parents aren't in the same room, aren't on the same bed. My sister just hated being home. She couldn't wait to leave, and I just felt, my heart just ached. My heart was just in pain. And I even felt angered. And it did come to a point where the latter end of 2009, or the latter end of 2008, coming into 2009, just came into such turmoil with my dad, and there were these arguments, and there was this arguments about my mom, and rumors would be spread throughout the family. I'm like, God, this wasn't meant to be. And I found myself, I remember, I'm just going to call it the day of the phone call. And I found myself one day coming home after church, and I was so eager for God's goodness to just heal everything, to make everything right. And I come home to my phone ringing. I pick up my phone, and it's my dad. And I was scared. I don't know if you've ever gotten a phone call and you're like, you know it's going to be bad. You're like, I don't know if I want to pick this up. It's going to be bad. You feel the hairs in the back of your neck. It's hot, and your eyes start just like focusing on tunnel vision. You can't see anything else. And you look at that phone call, you pick it up, and all you hear is this angry voice, and all you hear in your own heart is an angry voice, and you want to fight back, and you start defending yourself, and he starts defending himself, and then there's this argument, and then words of death get spoken over. I hang up the phone, I fall to my knees on the ground. I still remember the grains on the ground as I was weeping, as I was crying, and tears were falling down, and I was like, God, isn't this life? One moment you're full of joy. One moment you're excited, everything is bright ahead of you, and then some storm comes along and some darkness comes along and it just takes away all your hope. So I wept, and I was frustrated. And I felt this tear in my soul where it's like, I wanted to ask why, I wanted to hate God. It's like I found that time where you kind of wanted God to like you, but you wanted to hate Him at the same time, and it's kind of like this God, help me, I don't know, why God help me? You know, you're like, you couldn't help it. So I was so frustrated at this time, and it brings us to this point where I'm like, God, guys, although we were made for light, the problem is darkness. Gloom has been cast over the earth. Since humans disobeyed, sin has entered the world and it has cast a shadow over us. And at that time, and I realized my family's sin and my sin, my soul just began to be so reacquainted with such a dark and fallen world. Where, yes, it's not just glitz and glam, it's not just flowers. Darkness does exist, anger does exist, pain does exist. And I stopped. I was that time where I was like, God, I want to stop. I'm tired. I am tired. So when humans disobeyed, it was so interesting because in Genesis, God started creation with what? Let there be light. Even before the trees were made, even before the sun and the stars and the moon was made, God started creation with let there be light. We were made for light. The problem is somehow when we sin, darkness came into the world and cast a shadow. Now you think of this world today and there's injustice, there's hatred, there's racism. I was watching these Holocaust documentaries. I'm like, the anti-Semitism, what makes someone hate someone so much? To torture them, to punish them. What makes someone look at another person and think they're nothing? That they're worth, that they're below humanity? What makes someone enter into a school and murder little children? Last night I was just meditating. I was really meditating because it really bothered Gayon, this whole Connecticut story. I'm sure you guys have heard. This whole thing where 20 children, 7 adults or something like that were murdered, were killed by this person just, was it yesterday or Friday? Friday, right? Friday. And it really bothered Gayon. And I didn't really have time to think about it. And last night when I was meditating over the sermon, I was really thinking, man, God, I don't know what to think about this. I'm like, God, can you show up in this? Can somehow, like, can I find you in this, God? Like, I can be frustrated, but I can have hope. But God, where do you find glory in a bunch of little kids dying, murdered? How do you find light in that? So I was praying and I was thinking, I was like, Lord, help me connect. And I just started thinking about my own daughter, my own daughter that's come. And I can't tell you guys how excited I am. All my dream, like, is she going to be like this little curly-haired, energetic fireball running around bouncing off the walls? Or is she going to be this super shy girl that's like, oh, Patty, stop embarrassing me. You know, like, I'm like thinking about this girl, and oh, she's going to go to school, and you know what? If she's creative, I'm going to help her be super creative. Or if she's just a thinker, oh, we're going to think about so many things. Just look, I have so many dreams. And then this brings me back to the story of Connecticut, and I was thinking, that could have been her. I could have, what about those girls? What about those daughters? The world is dark, guys. It's dark. We can't deny it. I was looking at some articles of little girls, some girls that have died, and Charlotte was one of them. They were supposed to be there for the holidays, to leave early from school. But they said, but finally on Friday, after hearing a lot of begging, Charlotte begging to go to school, her mother relented and let her go to school on Friday. She was so excited, she really wanted to go to school because she wanted to show off her pink dress and her pink boots. It was the last outfit that outgoing redhead would ever pick out. Her parents, Joanne and Joel, had lived in Newton for 4 or 5 years. And when they moved to Connecticut, they had so much excitement because that girl dreamt of going places. Traveling the world. Just this little girl could light up the room. She had so much light, so much light. But darkness came in. God, how dare you? Why would you let that happen? If my daughter was like that, I'm like, God, I don't know how I would react. Darkness is real. The problem is, in this world, humanity, people that don't know the Lord, somehow they downplay it. Oh, it's just because we don't have enough gun control. You know what we need to do? We need to think positive. I call it Oprah positivity. We get so caught up in the whole, hey, just believe in yourself. You know, you can do anything you want. If there's anything negative, just don't think about it. Like, we really try and set up these counterfeit lights. We really try to light up our own life and go find the lights that don't really last. So, in thinking about this, it really brought me to the mind of even my middle schoolers now in high school, where now they're going to high school and they want to smell good. The thing is, they're always playing basketball. There's running right before the bus. They would play basketball. The problem is they would sweat and they would smell. All they would do is take Axe body spray and just douse themselves in that. The problem with that is that doesn't clean you up. You still kind of smell. You're in the midst of all that thick musk of Axe. And that's what we do. That's what some of us do here right now. We try and cover it up with artificial lights. It's like cologne on a corpse. This brings us to Christmas. In Isaiah verse 2 it says that these are the people in Judah, the Israelites, and there was this army coming. And the army wasn't going to attack. They were fearful. It's just there. They're casting a shadow, and it's like, what do we do? We just convince? Do we pretend they're not there? Do we acknowledge that they're there? What do we do? It's just, if they're there, they could attack at any moment. So they're trying to find light. They're trying to see the light. So we come to this Christmas time right now, and I'm sure there's all these emotions of Christmas. And there's this longing, right? There's this nostalgic feeling of, oh, the joy of the holidays, right? The emotions of that. And I don't know about you, but when you see Christmas lights and Christmas trees, some people get so excited, right? The reason for the season. So, I was singing the song, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas, you know that song? And even that song, if you listen to it, it just arouses something in us, like a deep hope, or that longing for home, or that longing for, maybe a good memory you've had with a family, a good memory you've had in Disney World, and you're just, oh, man, one day when we go back to Disney, one day when we hang out with the family, oh, once I move to this place, once I go back here, it's this deep-seated longing in us for things to be right. And that reflects in all creation. All creation is aching. It's like since sin and darkness came into the world, all creation has been longing for light to pierce through and fix everything. And creation is like, if only something needs to fix it. If only something is better. And even now, maybe some of us are longing for that. Maybe we're looking for that family time in the holidays. You're like, oh God, I'm waiting for this good moment, this good time. Maybe some of you are trying to find these Christmas lights to light up your life. This light up my life Christmas presents. So you're like, oh, I know the iPhone 4, that was iPhone 5. If only I have that, Lord, light up my life. That will, iPad mini. I had a list. For the sake of time, I'm not sure you, but the top Christmas most wanted Christmas presents includes the iPhone 5 and the iPad mini, in all ages, even age 75 and age 6, iPad mini and iPhone 5. And there was a whole long list after that, but I was like, God, there is this hope that we're trying to find. And maybe some of us, it's light up my life grades. Once I graduate, once I get, and then we have that longing for that, but somehow it still doesn't satisfy. We have this longing. Once I get married, you have that longing for that. Once I have kids, you have that longing for that. Once I have this car, finally, oh God, then, or God, light up my life Fridays. How about that? Monday, you're already thinking, Friday, you're looking forward to that? Too many times we're looking out for counterfeit lights. And it's this elusive emotion, this elusive feeling, only to come out of Christmas and people have this hangover of debt. Or hangover of family arguments, or hangover of, man, it's over and it's done and I'm back. These artificial lights, these Christmas lights that we're trying to light up our life with, only arouses that desire of what is actually true in us, but does not satisfy it. No, counterfeit lights arouse your desires. You might even tickle it a little bit, but it will not satisfy. So Christmas arouses eternal longing. Christmas lights tend to be so cheap, tend to be so fragile, and they break, and they get old. Then we come to this point, we come to this solution now, ready? So there's this darkness, and there's this world that's groaning, there's this world that's aching. And we Christians cannot downplay darkness. Please don't, it's real. Don't try and too many times we downplay our sin, too many times we say, oh yeah, you know, it's not that bad because this person does this and I only do this. Or when someone asks, how are you doing? Like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. It's serious. One shadow can cast a larger shadow over your life. One small object held up against the light, and that light can't pass that object and creates a larger shadow onto you. So recognize, what are your shadow casters? What are those things that cast darkness? So we got to go to this feeling. Stop trying to light up your life with all these man-made lights. They always burn out. They always let you down. But we come to this point now. Proverbs 6:23 says, the commandment is a lamp. The law is a light. So we come to this point now where there's this sin in the world, and then Abraham comes along. He's like, God, where is it? Where's the solution? Like, all people are craving for this solution. They're craving for this hope. And God's like, don't worry. Abraham, don't worry. I know people are dying. I know people are depressed. I know that you've been longing for something, but I'm going to roll in the kingdom. Something is going to come. I'm going to bring it. So it passes Abraham. And then the prophets, they proclaim it. There's this light that's coming. There's this true light that's coming. There's this light that you guys are trying to look for. You're trying to use these other idols of gold, these idols of other things that reflect light. But the true light, the true source of light, it's coming. And then we go to the prophets. We go through all that. Boom, boom, boom. We go to David. And David's like, God, oh, your light, your law is a light, God. But we have it. We try and follow this light, but somehow this light, we fall short. We can't fit these standards of the law of God. How can we resolve this? So there's been this refrain from all of eternity where God says, yes, I will bring the kingdom. I will bring the true light. I will bring the solution. And then finally there's these 400 years of silence, and then this crazy guy named JB, John the Baptist, comes along eating locusts and says, it's here! The light is coming here. Get ready. The kingdom of God is at hand. It's here. People are like, what? And remember 400 years ago where the prophets were proclaiming this? Remember when people want to get fixed? It's here. It's coming. They're like, what? What's coming? Prepare the way of the Lord. You know what? The light that's coming, it's not a what. It's a who. They're like, what? It's the Savior. It's the deliverer. The hope is here, guys. Your depression, your anger, your hate, the family turmoil, the divorce, all that, it can be gone. The shadows will be wiped away because the light is coming. Guys, the true message of Scripture, the true message of Christmas, is that this light is not a what, but it's a who. In 9:6, let's jump to 6 here. So the Israelites were seeing this light. They're like, oh, we want this light. And then Isaiah prophesies this. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. God is coming. God is becoming a man. Something, guys, prepare the way of the Lord. The kingdom of God is at hand. It is here. Guys, creation began with let there be light, and then sin and darkness entered the world, but then there's a new creation now. God creates this child, and it begins with this new light. And unlike all other lights, this light is unique. Because in John 1, jump to John 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. and all things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life. You know, like life, life. Oh, life, what is this, God? Oh, man, all creation has been groaning. All have been waiting for the solution. What is it, God? Oh, we want this life. And this life is the light of men. Guys, all of eternity is wrinkling towards this birth. It's like when God created, things got fractured, things got broken, things got messed up. And then it comes to this point now, all of eternity is like wrinkling. It's like being attracted to this one point. And it gets to this point where there's a birth of a baby. And so many babies have become kings, but there's only one king who became a baby. And this is the Christ child. The ultimate life, Jesus. John 1:4-5 says, this light was the light of men, and the darkness couldn't overcome it. So many times when people ask me what's the history of Christmas trees, people would used to light up candles for Christmas trees. The thing is, burned to Christmas trees, or the candles kept blowing out. So they tried little light lanterns, and it kept running out. And they were just trying. The thing is, the lights kept running out. They were like, oh, darkness keeps coming. Every time there's darkness, we cannot find strong enough lights. And people always create lights, but you know what? Light bulbs run out. I was just changing the light bulbs the other month. The thing is, there's light that never runs out. You connect yourself to this source. This is the true light. The darkness can't overcome this light. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. This is Martin Luther King. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And John 8:12 says, I am the light of the world. Whosoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So, here's the question. Are we downplaying some darkness in our lives today? Because God said, let there be light, and darkness flee. Let there be light, the darkness couldn't comprehend it. It couldn't overcome it. Light just kept coming. It just kept coming. Brian Sanders says, light leans into the darkness, and darkness couldn't overcome it. So there was light, there's this leaning, and the darkness is just backing up. Backing up. It's kind of like that scene in 300 where the 300 soldiers were just pushing the people off the cliff. And it's like light just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. Are you letting the light shine in? Are you letting there be light in your life? Or are you downplaying, there's not that much darkness? Are you downplaying, oh yeah, you know, I'm good, I love Jesus, and there's, you know, there's some sin in me, there's some bitterness in me. It's not that dark though. It's only like a little shadow in the corner. There's some bitterness I have, there's some jealousy I have for other people. You know what? That'll go away. Are you downplaying darkness? Or are you letting there be light? Let there be light. So when humans fell, they ran from darkness. They went to hide. They went to conceal the darkness. They want to keep away from the darkness. And the thing is, your soul wants light. Light itself. Your soul savors, craves it. And this is what I want to ask you. Can you get in touch with that? Can you find that craving of light? Because so many times when we don't crave the secret place, when we don't desire to get into the Word, when we don't desire, like when there's church and there's microchurch and there's disciples to be made, there's evangelism, it's okay to feel that once at a time, but when it becomes regular where it's like, oh, it becomes a burden, it's because you found other lights that will sustain you for a time. Facebook can sustain you in your entertainment for a time before the news feed just gets old. Netflix can sustain you for a time before the TV shows run out. Money, the light of cash, it can sustain you for a time before it runs out. Grades, some of you have graduated, you're not even using your degrees. Work, some of you guys working, and all you're looking forward to is Fridays. Some of you guys have this fleeting, nostalgic hope for once I get out of South Florida, once I find this place somewhere, everything will be better. Once, oh man, once I get grad school, then I can make much of my life. Then I can have status. Right? But what we're really longing for, it's an actual true desire that has been put in us. We're really longing for the true light. The first step is we got to desire this light. So I remember now when I was there on the floor weeping after my conversation with my dad, and I wanted his help, but I hated what I assumed he did. I was crying out, and the scariest part, guys, was this. I didn't see my dad's darkness first. I didn't see my mom's, my sister's, all the other people who I felt like wasn't even caring about me, because at that time, everything was about me. The scary part was I saw my darkness. I saw my bitterness towards people, my jealousy towards a friend I had who has a good family, whose parent, why couldn't I have a dad like that? Why does this person have a really good relationship right now? Why is this person making the grades? Why is this? And I saw my jealousy, I saw my envy, I saw all this darkness. And you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to look at other things that were darker than that. I wanted to oh, this isn't as bad. Look at what my dad did. Look at what my friend did. Look at what they're doing. Are there secret areas in your life? Is there any hatred that you have? Is there any discontentment, like lack of gratitude to the Lord, where you go home and you just hate your family? Maybe it's not hate. Maybe it's just seeds of hate called annoying, getting annoyed, irritated. We need to let there be light. Lay hands on our dads. Lay hands on our friends. Lay hands on our brothers. Let there be light. Is there a brother in need? Guys, we gotta pray. Let there be light. Is there some bitterness that you have? You gotta come to your brother, your sister, confess. Let the light shine through, guys. Because light will defeat darkness. The darkness cannot overcome the light. You wonder sometimes, you're like, why is the darkness still coming back? Maybe there is a corner in your heart that the light hasn't shined yet, and you have yet to come and confess it to your brother and to your sister, to let the light shine through. Because if not, the darkness will fester. It will grow. Is there an area in your computer that you haven't let the Lord's light shine yet? An area in your room, an area in your car, an area in your mind. Some kind of stronghold, some kind of thought that you just entertain, and it's harmless right now. But you haven't yet let the light shine. Guys, you need to let there be light. You need to let the light shine. So here's my call. I'm going to end it with this. Even now, I tend to get this lifelong nostalgia, this longing to be reunited with something. You know, this longing of oh, once Greenhouse gets there, or once my work gives me a raise, once my baby comes, it's like this whole once this becomes reunited, once this thing gets fixed, I have this illusion in me, and even emotions in me gets aroused of feeling, and I'm like. And I get that feeling. And what I must recognize is this. There are lights that are good, but it's not the light of the world. And some of us here have given up the dream of the true joy, of the true light. Some of us here have just got caught up in whether it's in ministry, or morality, or religious obedience. And we just come to a point where you just come and you're like, hey, yep, I'm here, there it is. And you leave, and you're actually searching for something else. Guys, can we regain that again? Can we regain that childlike heart again this Christmas? I dare you to be childlike again. I dare you to let the light in and let the light shine out. What does your soul really crave? Stop looking for your light in a spouse, in a kid, in a job, in a grade. Forget about all those light up my life things, and let there be light from the true light, Christ. Here's my story that so when I was kneeling, I still remember the grains. I could still remember the cracks in the wood, and I even was feeling my heart being shattered. And even at that time, just thinking about that time now, and thinking about even the times when the kids were dying, and thinking about times now when there's people here going through pain, going through struggle, going through grayness. I'm not even talking about darkness, just grayness, like complacency. And moch. And I think about that, and my heart breaks. And I go back to that moment where I felt my spirit saying, Zar, cry out to the Lord. Zar, let the light shine in. It was so weird because my mind was searching. I was like, God, how do I do this? I don't want to let other people know because they're the ones who should come to me. They're the ones who should say, oh, how are you doing, Zar? They're the ones who should, why did they forget about, so I was having all this selfishness. I was like, Zar, all you got to do, cry out, God. Cry out to God. Cry out to Him. Let the light shine in. Ask for Jesus to come. Go to your friend. Ask him to pray for you. Go. But I wouldn't. I was trying to find my own lights. I was trying to light up my own life. And God's like, no, let the light shine. Let there be light, Zar. Let there be light. So I actually screamed. I was at that moment. I was weeping. I was crying. I was like, ah, Jesus. I don't know. I don't know what to pray. All my spirit is just saying, cry out to God. Let there be light. Let the light shine. So I was there, and you know what? I got this passage from the Lord. Read Psalm 27. I turned Psalm 27, and it's David doing the same thing as me. I bet he was weeping on the floor as well. He was like, God, one thing I ask, one thing I desire, one thing, God, one thing, it's to be at your place, at your temple, to look upon your face, God, for you to lift up my head and to know that you are Lord, that all will be all right. And God is right now looking at you guys and saying, lifting up your head, it's going to be all right. I don't know what fears you have in the future. I don't know what unclarity you have. I don't know if there's a person that's just been messing with you, if there's a family member that's just not right. Some of you guys have put things into the campfire that we talked about earlier about, I pray for my mother, my relationship with my dad. I don't know what fears, uncertainties, shades, shadows that are in the future of your life, but all I know is this. The shadow, the darkness cannot overcome the light. You've got to let the light shine.